There's some of these things that I do that I just don't have any agenda because I just want to talk to my friend. Let me tell you about Raffaella Braun. I did not know Rafi, right? From Triple Tiger's music. I did not know Rafi years ago. And I would always hear the management at our station talk, oh, Rafi this and Rafi that. And I finally said, who's Rafi? And my co-host looked at me, Julie Stevens, and she goes, how do you not know Rafi? She just took it for granted that everybody knew Rocky, you know? And I said, I don't. And I'm telling you this to your face.
So sweet.
She goes, she's simply the best at her job you'll ever meet.
Oh.
And I'm like, wow, we've met a lot of people and we know a lot of people and we like a lot of people who in the business that you do. And she goes, I know she goes, it's not to denigrate anybody else. It's to just tell you she's the best.
I could cry.
And I'm like, wow. And so I went into it going, okay, well, let's find out. And it did not take long for me to go, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Which is why I wanted you on this podcast.
Amazing.
How are you?
Flattered. I'm beyond belief. I'm great. How are you?
It's, as you were talking before, you and I were talking before we went on, it's a wonderful, exciting, horrifying, scary, beautiful, crazy time. Because the industry that you and I grew up in, and me a lot longer than you, as you guys can tell. Young punk kids drive me crazy. It's changing so rapidly.
So fast. Yeah.
When did you, because, okay, are you from Phoenix? Or is that just where you work?
Where I worked. I'm from New Jersey. I came to Nashville in 98 for college, and I stayed and wanted to be in this glorious, glamorous, wonderful music business. And that's the only reason my reputation precedes me, perhaps in a good way, with your cohorts, is I was an assistant and then a booking agent at CAA for 10 years. I was there. And I helped book the rodeo.
That's Creative Artist Agency, the biggest of the biggest.
Yes.
That's the biggest.
Yes. I lucked into that before I got in radio promotion and record promotion. And I was able to luckily bring you and Julie and Nate, Zach Brown Band after he had a good hit, Lady A after they had a good hit, if you remember that show. I mean, you've been a morning to late night guy. I don't know how you keep the hours you keep for KRTY, but that's
why I look like this.
Fantastic.
Did I ever tell you my Zach Brown story?
The Roll Tide up there that you got.
Yeah. Well, that's in honor of your Vanderbilt team because it's the only team we can consistently beat. It's the only team that we can consistently beat.
Just this year, right?
Oh, this year, I tell you what, I go back and forth. Justin Moore's a friend of mine. He's big Arkansas guy. Yeah. And every Saturday, Justin and I text back and forth, oh, they're going to win, they're going to lose, and he's always more excited about my team. And I'm always more excited about his team. Because, if you're a true fan, you go, God, we suck. Yeah. And so this year, as we take this, the dream of the national championship is over. And I'm kind of okay with that because we don't have to do the charade anymore.
Right. You don't have to pretend that you have to
and I don't have
time to beat your own record. It's exhausting.
I don't have to worry about it because it's stressful. And so now I just get to sit back and go, okay, well, I hope Georgia and Ohio State plays. Yay. Let's see what happens.
See. So a fan of the game now, not just your team. I'll tell you, with Vanderbilt, our baseball team is great, but the football team not so great. But Tennessee, we don't speak about them. And Dansby Swanson, who now plays for the Braves, said at a press conference, we don't do orange. There was an orange backdrop. He said, we don't do orange. So the Tennessee-Georgia loss, Tennessee-Alabama rivalry, I've been rooting for your guys, I got to say. I never thought.
Well, I have to deal with, because we go in spurts as far as musicians from different places. Yeah. And remember about 10, 15 years ago, it became Georgia. Yeah. Georgia, everything. It used to be Oklahoma. There was Texas and then Georgia. You had Luke Bryan, you had Jason Aldean, you have Cole Swindell, and just the list goes on and on. Georgia. So I caught enough hell last year.
Yeah, I'm sure you.
And as I told them, Yeah, I said, you've won one national championship. That's cute. It really is. That's cute. But now I'm having to catch the slings and arrows because they're like, yeah, well, we're going to do back to back. When's the last time you guys did that?
It's a lot to have to keep up with, which brings me to a question for you.
All right.
How do you like this KRTY transition? You're still huge in the Bay Area. You've been there so long. Do you have artists asking you questions? Artists coming on your amazing podcast and talking to you? They're texting you about their football teams. Are they talking about coming to the market? Are they talking about you being the best in the biz?
Well, you are too kind. It has been, and for those of you who've only listened to the podcast and never heard it, I was at KRTY radio in San Jose. I started in 1991.
Is that how long? And master of the airwaves, Hall of Fame, many. I feel it.
Here's what it is I always tell everybody, I'm the best show they could afford. They could have done better. They just couldn't afford it. But it's been this wonderful, crazy ride. But then we got sold. Our owner passed away. He was 98 years old. It wasn't a tragedy.
Yeah.
I remember when we announced his wedding, somebody was like, oh, this is so sad. And I'm like, no, he's 98 years old. He himself would have said, hey, we're good. We're good. And here's the thing, we went up for sale. And the truth of it is, you've been doing this long enough. If we went up for sale because of COVID, our value had dropped to under $1 million, right? Yeah. Now, when we went up for sale, you know as well as I do, 10 or 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that would have been pocket change to any of the broadcasting companies. We got no offers from any of the large broadcasting companies. No Cumulus, no iHeart, no Alpha, just list
with the
companies.
Strength of nobody brand, let alone the signal and the airwaves. Oh my gosh.
Nobody had any money to go to that. Yeah. So we ended up getting bought by one of the Christian broadcasting companies who actually paid. We tried to buy it, but as far as, the employees and groups, they offered 3 times what it was worth.
Yeah.
Because they can.
Good business deal.
Now, let me also say this, I give them all the credit. It's the EMF Christian Broadcasting Company. They always wanted the signal. They didn't want anything else. They have their own thing. Okay. They are simply the nicest, most wonderful people you have ever met. They have been nicer to us than our board was. They have gone out of their way to help us and protect us and do stuff. Again, people always say, well, no, I've got nothing
that makes me happy.
Glorious things to say about EMF. But it's been this trend. So we decided we would try to go on the stream and just do, because we think it's the future of radio. Yep. In the new cars, they don't put AM radios. And how long is it going to be before they don't put FMs?
It's going to be a long time.
You have to special order it.
Oh, really? My car,
you have to special
I
order
don't have any knowledge of this, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, well, we only buy used cars in my house too, so trust me. So it's the future, and so we're trying to build this, and Nashville and records, and you guys have been so supportive because let me explain to you guys if you don't know. Yeah. One of the things that made KRTY, I think, powerful is that we weren't part of the corporation, so we could play whoever we thought was good. And we would play no matter what, even if we may not have had the best relationship with either the artist or the company. If we thought it sounded good, then we were all in, and we didn't care what anybody else thought about it.
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
So we were always in, and I think you guys have always appreciated that.
Very much so.
And Nate and Julie always would tell you, they'll tell you the truth. That's one of those things. Don't ask the truth unless you really want to know it. And I tell this story. I was sitting in a meeting. I was sitting in her office with Dirk Spencer one time, right? Yeah. And Dirk said, "What'd you think of the song?" And they played it. And Julie goes, "I don't like it. I'm never going to play it."
Not going to do it.
And I have never seen anything like that, right? I'm one of these. I will tell you what you want to hear. I swear to God, I will. I will tell you what you want to hear. And I was just like, And I was just like stunned. And Dirk sat there for a second and he goes, okay, so how's your family? You know, and just moved
just
on.
went over.
Right.
It wasn't about a song.
Well, it was just like, okay, this one doesn't work. And I think he appreciated the fact that she didn't go, oh, it's okay. And maybe we can find a spot. I mean, he knew right then, don't like it, never going to play.
Never going to play.
And so, yeah, but when we do like something, we're 100% all in.
You jump out. Make the artist feel like family. I can tell you, having booked the Southeast, the Southwest, clubs and casinos, Texas and Oklahoma, missing a piece of the Midwest, but then I've been able to travel there for radio shows as a national director and had the West Coast territory. That's how we became so close for 9 years for Warner Music Nashville. You know, there is no other market, no other brand like KRTY that will bring the same artists and build a story, whether it's a radio show for the purposes of staff or a listener meet and greet with headliners like Tim and Faith for breast cancer benefit, for Susan G. Komen, for any need in the community of San Jose, the Bay Area, or whether it's you doing a remote broadcast with an artist from Shoreline Amphitheater on the concourse. I remember Dan and Shay very vividly, but with any artist over the years, or bringing them to Club Rodeo or another situation, you have it covered to where the first time an artist is in the market, they hear their song sung back to them by their audience, by the KRTY audience. And every time subsequently, you have mega fans who love you and Julie and Al and Michael, Randy, rest his soul, you know, and everybody that's been a part of KRTY on air, behind the scenes, Tina Ferguson, so many of your sales crew and interns over the years that have gone to other places in the business. There is no feeling about coming home like you guys created for any artist or rep. Honestly, it's true. I've seen it. I've seen it all.
It's been this fun, amazing journey. And, you know, and it's Julie and I, when we went off the air, our ratings were beyond. Yeah. They were beyond. Yeah. We literally had the most listened to country music morning show in America, not in the South Bay, in America. And what's crazy about how much the industry has changed. We went off the air. We got 0 offers, 0, none. Nobody called. Nobody did anything. And I told Julie, I'm like, if this would have happened 15 years ago, that we would have, every phone, every company, every agent would have called us and said, where do you want to work and how long do you want to work and how much do you want to work? But the industry has changed so much that it was just like, no, we can't take on any expense. There's an industry magazine called Country Aircheck. Yep. I can't stand reading it. It comes out every day. It's a newsletter. I can't stand reading it because every day somebody's losing their job. Literally every day. And the weekly magazine where they have the seeking jobs and offering jobs section, the jobs available section has become minimal, and the seeking jobs section has become multiple pages, Gary. It's devastating for all these talented people out of work in all aspects of the business, the industry. Yeah. And the things when they do hire you, all they care about right now, it's all about the social media. Yeah. And it's interesting because I refer to this, and I had a buddy of mine. I actually was on his podcast. He does a small business podcast out of New York City. That's smart. And we were talking about this, and he said, I said, you know, it's about the social media, and I said the social media number things right now kind of remind me of the .com bomb. Yep, and you're the area, right? So we threw. Yeah, and we threw money at the .coms because we didn't know what they did, but we figured we wanted to be ahead of the curve in case the money came, be a part of it. Which it never did. Never did. You know, and there's some saying that it's still going on. I mean, here in the Bay Area, watching people get fired in Legion at the big companies like Facebook. I'm sure. Oh, right? Yeah. Google and everything over there. Yeah. Yeah. And so so everybody's right now, when you look at a job offer, they used to want to know your ratings. They literally don't care. They don't want to know your ratings. They want to know your social media numbers.
Which blows
And
my
that's it.
mind. You know, it's sad to watch the business shrinking in a way, but there's a pinnacle coming. I did take an online class during the pandemic at NYU business. By the way, it's a great class if anybody wants to learn from Yellow Brick Learning out there. It's a 6-module class about the basics of the music industry. But they went into how much money is generated by streaming, not in depth. How do you build a studio out with fewer instruments, with fewer people coming in, with less money coming into the studio? It was very interesting. And it got a certificate from NYU, Tisch School of the Arts, which is
yo.
But what I learned from that was interesting. We're kind of at this valley now where Napster, remember in the 90s, they thought that was going to kill the business. Everybody got free music. It was streaming, downloading, not what they call it or consider it today, visually or audio file, you know?
Yeah.
But then that hit the valley and Napster was taking over and everybody was like, well, crap, we're going to lose all the business. We're not selling CDs like we used to. Okay, model's going out of whack. Then comes up Apple Music is at the peak, then starts selling online downloads for 99 cents. Doesn't change the model of song availability, but changes the pricing. And people go gaga until they realize now they can get it for free. But now what you're seeing physically is a resurgence of vinyl instead of CDs and tapes and DVDs. So I feel like the ebb and flow creates some space to be genuine and be authentic. Like what you're doing right now with KRTY is a big brand and it's different, but you're finding a space in this business where music was being cut out for a little bit.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think that's a great observation. I grew up in a small town in Alabama, and there's literally no industry. The only industry died years ago. And I remember talking to one of my
just because
it was they had a sewing factory, and if you're old enough to remember Jordache jeans, if you bought Jordache jeans, there was a very good chance that they were put together in Florella, Alabama.
Okay, got it.
Right. And so we had this sewing factory that they would do Jordache jeans, but then it closed. And so I remember being home probably about 15, 20 years ago, and some of my friends are still there. And it was a small town that shrunk even more. And I'm like, how do you make a living? And my friend looks at me and she goes, you have to create a job.
Okay.
I'm like, wow. And there's something about the human spirit and quintessentially American spirit that tells you, if I want to stay here, I have to create my opportunity. And I'm like, wow, that is, and that is the, and I think that's where we're at right now. And I think that's what your observation is that we're having to create our opportunity. And I think it will be cool. The bad thing about, and from your side of the industry, the bad thing about the conglomerates, if you had one corporate program director who decided he didn't like the way your shirt looked today, and I'm telling you, I know you have heart, you have stories about somebody who would just get their knickers in a knot for the craziest of reasons. You know? Because if you have all the power, it doesn't take much. You know, everybody says if you win $1 billion, you know, if you had won the Powerball lottery, would you keep working? Yeah, until something went wrong. This coffee sucks. I don't like this carpet. I'm out of here. Right. You know. Because you have the power to leave. I can't. And so the bad thing about corporate radio is that you guys were so handcuffed by this handful of people. I would want to say it, and you may know this better than me.
No.
Probably under 10 people, probably under 10 people total who control the majority of playlists in America.
Probably. Wow. When you think about it, we're country genre focused and we have a couple of chieftains, you know, in the tribe. But think about what that would be at news talk, sports talk, pop and hot AC and regular AC and urban. And think about how many people are in charge of this much. Not that many. It's hard to think about, and geographically speaking, for anybody out there, think about the whole country. Think about the UK has their own system, the BBC and all of that. There's one person that does that. For all those artists that go do C2C over there and work at Ireland and, Scotland and tour over there, there's one or two people in charge of that international radio.
What's the craziest story you've heard of somebody not liking a record or somebody who's difficult? You don't have to throw names out.
Yeah.
I don't want to get you in trouble. You don't need to burn any bridges. But yeah, because you still have to work with some of these people.
I do. Gone away.
But some of the weirdest stories that just made you go, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are plenty of them. One artist who will remain nameless, not a very warm and fuzzy person, especially a woman. It was never about the song choice. It was about program directors who didn't get a good feel for. She wasn't very thankful on the road, and she didn't hug them and smooch on them and tell them how great they were, give them a sense of pride. And conversely, we've done a lot with Jana Kramer. She was always very warm and fuzzy. She's an actress as well as a great vocal performer. She was up for an ACM for New Female of the Year back when we were working her. And she was so warm and fuzzy. And people thought that was odd, excessive, too warm and fuzzy. It's like you can't, and not everybody at all, but you can't really, can't fit. It's not a one size fits all. So we're talking about not just music that artists create, like you were saying, Dirks, but it's about personality and spirit and complimentary behavior. And guys get that all the time, but there are more of them, more solo males to pick from. So you'll see people just gravitate towards one or the other, not politically necessarily, not, I fish and this guy's a fisherman and, I like rock and roll and this guy's fun. There's a camaraderie in country, as you can say, you cultivated it. You helped cultivate it for 20 something years, and you still do. The artists that come to you, the artists that play your specific events after Shoreline, all of that. It's a warm feeling. It's not that way everywhere. And people's internal beliefs in radio will give them an opportunity or an excuse not to play somebody, just of who they are.
I get embarrassed sometimes by how people in this business act. I'm talking about radio. Yep. All right. Yep. I have been so embarrassed and horrified by some of the stories that, listen, when the Taylor Swift thing happened about the guy in Denver who grabbed her butt, I remember my wife saying, there's no way he would have done that. And I'm like, yes, way. Yes, there's a way, sweetheart. I'm like, I'm telling you, there are some scuzz in this business that I go out of my way, especially when it was a female artist.
Yep.
Well, it's just with female artists, I just wanted them to know, hey, listen, good to see you. I don't need any pictures. We don't need to hug on each other. I'm thrilled to just talk to you, because what I want to do is just give my audience access to you. That's all I want to do. Right? I don't need anything else. I swear to God.
You're a gate expander. That's
exactly.
We need you,
Yeah.
There's a way to be familial without being all encompassing and too much. And,
Well, I'm going to go off on a tangent, because I literally had this conversation with Brett James, the songwriter of this today, right? And I was like, isn't it crazy about the artists who should work that don't? You said Jana Kramer. Yep. I adore Jana Kramer. She is a wonderful song. And when I say a singer, she's a singer in the best sense that she's a stylist too.
There's emotion in her voice. Yes.
When I hear Jana Kramer song, I know a Jana Kramer song. I've heard other songs where I'm like, Nate is infamous for doing that, playing a song and not telling you who it is and see if you can guess who it is. And there's been plenty of times where we've all been wrong, going, I don't know.
Sure.
You can't do that with Jana Kramer.
Nope.
It's like, oh, hell, that's Jana Kramer. And she was so honest. Yeah. She had she's had such a hard road of her personal life. And she should have worked. And I still can't tell you why she didn't work.
I know. And that is also an interesting story because that's in the eye of the beholder, right? Country radio, she had a top 3, I think, Why You Wanna, and then a couple of songs that didn't work, top 10. But commercially, if you look at her social media, as we're saying that, as a brand, and because she's been in Hallmark movies and she has the end cap on Crest White strips and she, worked for Bye Bye Baby, endorsing or not exactly another like company when she had her kids. You look at her stories and there's 193,000 views. Is that successful? Not to what we're talking about in the world we live in, me getting records played or wanting to, and you embracing artists, showing your listeners who they are, but also being in a world of ratings and research and, other things besides just opinion. Is that success? Did she not work, or did she work, but not in the closed-minded terrestrial sense? I don't know.
I 100% agree with you. She works. She has created a wonderful, successful brand, and you and I both wish we had her yearly
for
income.
Sure.
That would be so. I mean, that is an excellent point. But as far as I think, if she was here with us right now, and she should be,
you should.
Yeah, she should be. We should get her on. But she would tell you that she would probably be disappointed on the music side, that it did not reach where she had hoped. And there's so many. I know you've worked artists who should have been bigger.
Sure.
I was sitting there in the conversation I had with Brad. I'm like, man, how did I don't know if you're old enough to remember this name. How did Kelly Coffey know?
Right.
Kelly Coffey had one of the most amazing voices and had amazing songs and was wonderful. And she was a great interview. She was a wonderful girl. It didn't work. It didn't take it. And there's people who've had songs.
Julia Roberts. I remember that.
Julia Roberts is great. Breakdown Here, one of the greatest all-time songs ever.
I love your
is great. This Breakdown Here.
Yeah.
I still can't. Wouldn't that be? I mean, I had this conversation. I always like to try to reimagine who could do songs today.
Yes.
And wouldn't you absolutely love to hear someone like a Miranda do Breakdown Here?
Absolutely. My favorite Miranda song is Dead Flowers. I don't even know where that landed on the chart, but
we played it.
Yeah, such an emotional song. Breakdown Here reminds me of that. You're at your wit's end and what do you do? That's the lyrical genius behind it, and the emotion in the vocal is beautiful. What about Cherie Austin and Jennifer? Oh gosh, there were a million of them. Remember?
Yeah, Cherie Austin, but she was from Australia.
Yes.
And she had everything ready to go. And some people some people kind of sabotage themselves. Yeah. I mean, I think Catherine Britt would be the first to tell you.
I was just going to say her. I remember she had a song with Kenny Rogers, right?
Well, what was the song she did about the regret?
Yes.
Talking about the astronaut.
How my tongue. Yes.
She flirted with the astronaut and she just something about drunk last night. Yep. And it was just the most. And then she kind of lived the song,
sure,
right? Sure. And it kind of betrayed us. Same thing. I think Michelle Wright. Remember?
Yes,
Take
I
It
remember
Like a Man.
her.
I think she ended up having some issue stuff too. And your window of opportunity is
that big. No, you're right about that. Emily West. Remember her voice? Emily West. Remember she was on
Emily West. We all thought she was going to be huge. We thought Emily West was going to be the next Faith Hill or bigger. Sure. And people forget, at one point, Faith was a bigger star than Tim. Yeah. People forget that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Emily West, and we had her out here. I think we had I can't tell you how many shows we have her out here for.
I bet you were developing the story, and and then she wound up finding success on America's Got Talent years later. I mean, years later was a finalist on that show. So you never.
And even then, that wasn't the springboard to take her where I'm sure she thought she wanted to go.
Right. What did they think was the pinnacle and the rollout on how many radio tours have you seen, Gary Scott?
Oh my gosh. I have seen so many radio tours. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to take a quick break and come back so we can pay for this on Here's What We Know with Raffaella Braun. Right back. It's time to think differently when it comes to your parties, meetings, and groups. The catering from Havana Cuba Restaurant in downtown San Jose. Instead of the same old, how about the most delicious Cuban sandwich you've ever had? You're tired of fries? Plantains, my friends, they'll change your world. And here's something you didn't know. Havana Cuba was voted one of the top 10 tamales in the entire South Bay. They have vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options, and their website is 998cuba.com. They're located at 387 South 1st Street in downtown San Jose. It's Havana, Cuba. So the question was, how many radio tours have I seen? I am telling you, because I did pop radio for a while, did AC radio and got that. Yes. And then I started off in country. And then I went to college and I worked all the way through college and I was doing AC and rock and roll. And then I did AC and top 40 when I got out. And then I was in Fort Collins, Colorado, running I was a program director, operations manager of KTRR in Fort Collins, Tri 102. We were number one, got our ratings back. Ratings went up. They said, we're going to meet with you this afternoon. I thought, wow, I may get a bonus. I've never worked for a company that's given me a bonus. I've never had a bonus. You people who've had bonuses, I have no idea what that's like. My wife works for a big company and she gets bonuses. And I'm like, is that awesome? What? Is that awesome? And, but anyway, they brought me in and they said, well, here's your new owners. And I looked at them and they said, hey, Gary, you have way too much talent and way too much ability for what we have planned here. We're going to have to let you go.
Oh, no. Yeah, great. You had the ratings and everything behind you.
The beautiful thing is it led me here. What I thought was the worst thing in my life actually turned out to be simply the best day of my entire life ever, because without it, I wouldn't have my wife and my children in this career that is just beyond blessed.
That's a lot in itself.
But as well as I do, I would purposefully just not worry about remembering their names because it was an 80% chance that I would
never hear
from them again. And we've seen so many. I remember, I've told this story before. I was walking out of the station one day, and you remember the old Story Road location, right?
Oh yeah.
So I was walking out of the store one day and there was the station, and literally next door to us was Taco Bell. Taco Bell was literally next door. I walk into my car and these three young women holding Taco Bell have it. And I'm like, and they go, hey, they're all friendly. I said, hey, how are y'all? And they're like, oh, we good. I said, so who are you? She goes, we're the Dixie Chicks. I'm Natalie. This is Emily. That's, and I'm like, oh, good for you. I said, I'm glad you found Taco Bell. And they're like, yeah, it's great. We're going to go do a show, but we haven't eaten all yet. And I'm like, all right, well, and literally in my mind, I'm kind of going, whatever. I'll probably never see you again. And at least I was polite.
Right. They knew you was Mr. Big Scary Radio Man,
Yeah. And it was just, and I've seen so many of those where you're just like, I remember, and I've told this story before, we literally had Eric Church at the station, and we went on the air and Nate said, hey, why don't you just stand out in the parking lot and sign autographs? I mean, or just meet people.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
This is Eric flipping Church, but he wasn't Eric Church.
Yeah.
And I was leaving and we're standing out in the parking lot, and it was a rare, cloudy, cold day in North San Jose. And I looked over at him and I said, hey, Chief. And he goes, and I didn't know he called himself Chief. That's one of the things I call him. I said, hey, Chief. And he goes, yeah. I said, David Allen Coe? And he goes, yeah. I said, if you're big star bound, let me warn you, it's a long, hard ride.
Oh,
and he goes,
my. Did that give him chills? I bet.
He's like, he was probably just thinking, whatever.
And then he went,
but that's the kind of stuff. If you do it long enough, you see these things, you see these moments. So these radio tours, I've seen so many that doesn't work. And then you see, and then again, if you like music, just nerd music, this is me and Rafi doing nerd music. Remember Brooks and Dunn? Once you were past a certain stage, you never did radio tours anymore because you didn't have to. And remember, Brooks and Dunn changed the paradigm. They did a radio tour after, because remember they were big, and then they kind of they had a couple of years where nothing happened, and then all of a sudden, I remember Julie coming in going, Brooks and Dunn will be here Wednesday, and I'm like, what? They're going to be here Wednesday. I'm like,
at the station?
Okay, they're going to do a song. She goes, they're literally coming in to do the show with us Wednesday. They are going to be here from 8 until 10 o'clock.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like,
my gosh.
This is, and at that point, that had never happened. Never happened. You didn't have stars of that stature. No. If they called you, it was great. No. If they came in and did one break with you, that was beyond amazing. No, we're going to be there for 2 hours.
Oh my goodness. It's a lot.
And it changed, right? Yeah, it changed everything. And then all of a sudden, everybody started doing it. All of a sudden, Travis Tritt's in studio. All of a sudden, Montgomery Gentry's in studio. Everybody starts, they saw it work. Yep. I think maybe it was Red Dirt Road that was the single they were pushing. And it worked.
That resurgence of that entire career. I mean, gosh.
So it was fun. Well, how about you when it comes to radio tours? I mean, who did you see turn into a star before your eyes?
Dan and Shay.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And it was just, you remember when we were there the first time, they looked like kids, they were kids, and they just had this panache. The first time I heard them, the Espo had them play at Warner, they blew up. Like their harmonies were so tight. I said, I know I've heard this before, and I thought they sounded like Rascal Flatts, but I couldn't put it in my head. Like, this is so commercial. This is brilliant. This is great. And we were on radio tour. I think we did 2 or 3 cycles with them, just playing at studios, doing mini takeovers, having conversations before they got invited on the Darius Rucker tour. Russell Dickerson, he's on Triple Tigers. I have not been with him. I joined Triple Tigers 3 years ago, and we have him and Scotty McCreery, your girl Cam from the San Francisco area, and Jordan Fletcher, who just played for you. And Jordan Fletcher, we've done a little radio touring, but that's been during COVID. So it was more safety first, sweet performances at CRS, Country Radio Seminar, Live in the Vineyard events up by you, bigger events, not the go place to place just because of the pandemic and everybody trying to be careful and be distanced so that nobody lost 3 weeks of work going in. But I wasn't there for Russell and Scotty because the label had been in existence for 3 years. But I can tell you, Russell Dickerson, when I was at CAA, my assistant, Jim Butler, picked Russell out of Belmont University and said, you've got to come see this kid. He's doing a Belmont showcase just in college. He's a music major. I don't know. Can we put him on tour with Kanan Smith? Remember Kanan Smith? He was a CAA.
Remember Kanan Smith?
It was a
hole in my pocket.
And go along like the Mississippi. Da, 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 da. They put him on a couple of Kanan Smith dates, and you could see people, even though it wasn't radio tour, I could see people gravitate toward Russell. And that was 5 years before he got a label deal with Triple Tigers. He was around town. He would open for Keith Urban a little here and there, but I would see him sparsely because I was at Warner, not Triple Tigers, the last couple of years, or before the last couple of years. Just every time I'd see him, from that Belmont showcase to opening smaller theaters with Kanan or clubs with Kanan to first of 3 on a couple of Keith Urban dates, like watching that didn't feel like it was before my eyes, like Dan and Shay on the radio tour and growing up, being with them every day. But I could see it happening, It's crazy.
That's a great answer.
What about you?
I saw it.
What about you?
I met Dan and Shay at a party, right? We were at CRS.
Yes.
And Nate hauled me to somebody's house for a party. I don't even know who it was, right?
Yeah.
It was packed. And then all of a sudden he's standing there and we're talking and he goes, hey, these two guys are trying to make it, Dan and Shay, and I'd never heard of them. I'd never done anything. Yeah. And so I'd not heard any music. I had no idea what they were. So we just started talking and they started talking about how they drank cheap beer. And I am a beer snob.
Oh.
I did not get this svelte shape by not being
available for local breweries.
Yes, Moonraker Beer. Yeah. If you want to sponsor this show, call me. but I remember talking to him about, oh my God, guys, at some point, if you ever get successful, please stop drinking crap beer. Life is too short for crap beer, right? And I remember having this conversation. And the funny thing of it is, as you know, if you spend any time with Dan and Shay, if you're going to talk to them, if you talk to Dan and Shay for an hour, you're going to talk to Dan for 59 minutes and 42 seconds.
Yep. Right.
Right. And Shay's good with that because Shay's like, I'm just going to sit here and be happy.
I'm going to save this voice. I'm going to save this.
Yeah. And Dan is the brilliant guy. But I loved when I heard them sing, and I've had a chance to tell Dan this. I'm like, it's one thing. Everybody loves Shay's voice. Who would not love Shay's voice? Who doesn't? Yeah. But Dan's harmonies are the most unusual harmonies, the most unusual notes that he goes for and hits that it's why they don't sound just like Rascal Flatts. Because the truth of it is, Jay and Joe Don, they can't sing those harmonies. Yeah. And that's what makes it. I always sit back and say, and if you go and listen to any of the stuff, especially even the more current they get, the latest releases, Dan goes riskier and riskier places, and not in a bad way. But if you hit the wrong note with the note he's trying to get to, it's going to knock Shay off. It's brilliant. He's brilliant.
I agree. It's just so smooth. You can barely pick them out unless you really focus in and figure out who's singing what. It's unbelievable.
It's like good chocolate. You taste the chocolate, but it's the other little underlying flavors that separate chocolate, right? Yes. That when you go, wow, that's really good. And that's what Dan does. Dan adds that underlying flavor. I love your artist. I'll tell you this. I think Russell. Yeah. I think Russell, he is one of that, and I've told him this too. You meet somebody every now and then you go, man, you didn't choose this career. This career chose you. You could not have done anything else. Because I don't know if I've ever seen anybody more comfortable performing. And that includes on stage and talking to people. I've seen him when it's just him and his wife, and he's a completely different person. Same way I'm with my wife, right? Everybody has to ask my wife, they're like, oh, I bet he's so much funny. And she's like, are you
Levi, everybody's like, your dad is so cool. And you're like, he's like,
no, not at all. But it's one of those kind of deals where you sit back and go, he's just born to perform. And he's just so good at it. And Cam, who I have known for
a long time,
is the smartest person in any room she's going to be in.
Yeah.
She's that. And I think she is going to create, and she's starting to create, this niche of passionate fans. Because if you get Cam, I don't know if she'll ever be a huge star. And I don't know if she got there, she'd be happy being a huge star.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Because I don't think it would allow her to do what I think she truly is.
To be herself and be authentic.
And as we're talking about Jana. Yeah. I think Cam can create a great life for herself, and she's doing it. create a life where they're financially independent, and she can make this and go from there, and everybody's always going to be interested in it. And I just find her, I love talking to her. I love talking to her because, man, you're one wrong sentence away from her going,
looking at you and telling you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that you guys create that space for her, that you guys saw that in her.
Thanks.
Right. Because it's one thing for me to be a fan. It's another thing for you guys to be a business and go, no, we're going to make this work. We're going to make that room because we're going to see. Yeah.
We're going to take
what do you see when you see Cam?
You know, we're going to expose you. She did a performance online. It was virtually from the Ryman. Did you see that last year? I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, it was a piece of performance art during the pandemic when they couldn't have people in the venues in Nashville per state law. At the time, we were trying to figure out how to connect people. And we did some live streamed events with you guys, with Russell and Scotty and Cam and Gone West at the time. And people would view that in real time and they would feel a connection because they could ask things in the chat boxes and it was interactive in a way. This was not interactive, but this was performance art. Like you're talking about Cam. She had a sofa and a lamp and the perfect lighting and the church windows, the stained glass of the Ryman. And it was just her and a carpet and one costume change and not this big theatrical thing, just stripped down Cam, vocal genius, set genius. She has her own ideas, her own perceptions of how she wanted to do it. And they sold a couple thousand tickets, you know, to the show online. And people that saw it commented, that's you. That's you. You know, she can sing and she can belt all the way to an arena full of fans. But really, when you strip her down, she's independent. She's authentic. She's thought provoking. She, you know, is witty with her banter in between. It's captivating.
Well, as I said, she's just so damn smart. And I mean, you know, when Burning House is a hell of a calling card, right? Yeah. I mean, that song is so layered
for sure.
And it's a song that it's a song that only a handful of people could have written.
Well said, right? Gary.
Because most of us could not have created the imagery, the despair, the hurt, the hope of everything that's thrown into that. And then, you know, and then when she goes up tempo, listen, I was just pissed that Mayday wasn't there.
Right.
You know, I still love Mayday. I just think it's just so damn clever and not in a cute way. It's not the clever in the cute sense. It's clever in, again, I could write this and you can't.
Yeah, right. Take that and study it, you know?
Yeah. And Scotty McCreery is, you meet every now and then you meet somebody who just has undeniable talent.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember Julie and I were there for the last American Idol show. Yeah. Remember when they had that? The last American Idol show? And we were in studio. Yeah. Scott Borchetta had invited us down to be in studio. Yeah. And so we were in studio and we both looked at each other and all the singers, you know, for most of the things, all of them. And you could understand when the winners sang, it was completely different than when everybody else sang, right? When Bucky Covington sang, it's like, oh, well, that's nice. Right. When Ruben Studdard sang, you went, oh, hell. And when Scotty sang, Scotty was just like, wow, it's like watching. I don't mean to belittle the other guys or you know the other people, but if you watch the best high school player and say, wow, that kid's really, really talented in basketball. And then all of a sudden you went and saw Steph Curry. You'd go,
right.
Wow, this kid's good,
That
but
guy's
he ain't
great.
that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to, because my son's a basketball geek, and
Is he?
He's in the seventh
Is he
grade.
a player?
Yeah, he loves it. He's in the seventh grade. Yeah. So all I do is take him to practice.
Oh, yeah. Good job, Dan.
But I had told him, I said, here's how competitive, because you want them, I don't want them to cut down their dreams, but I want them to have a realistic thing. I said, baby, here's what you need to know. Remember, we watched the Final Four last year in college, right? And he goes, yeah. I said, buddy, the vast majority of the players who played in the Final Four aren't good enough to make it to the NBA minor league. Not the NBA, to the NBA minor league. That's how competitive. And same thing with music. Julie and I were talking about this the other day. Have you noticed how many former sports people are in music now? I mean, Sam Hunt, Ingrid Andress, Brett Young, Scotty McCreery. The list goes on and on. All these sports people. Yeah. And I think there's something about the competitive nature that drives because music is so damn competitive.
I think that's brilliant. It is. Music's just as competitive as sports, but it is that drive, and you almost have to be at echelon above to even start on a level. You have to have ambition and motivation and a competitive spirit beyond the average individual to want to do this.
Well, you got to do it.
You also have to be crazy, I think, but there's some of that.
Well, you got to do it when you don't want to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's one thing. I think what I do, it's easy to do because people say, do you have bad days? I'm like, yeah, you do. But the truth of it is my job is truly fun. And when I get there and if I get going, the only thing that I can't do a show, one thing is you're sick. I'm just talking about mentally. Yeah. If my child was sick, I can't do the show. I cannot do the show. I cannot leave that headspace if my child is sick. But everything else, I can find a way. My wife bitches at me all the time because I'll go into work sick. And I'm like, baby, I'm going to be sick no matter what, no matter where I'm at. Yeah. But if I'm with Julie, there's a chance I'm going to feel a little better at some point.
You're going to make magic too. You are.
But you guys, like what you do, and I'm not trying to fluff you up. What you guys do is so based on the reaction of other people.
It is.
And I can only imagine
it is.
Those are the days when you go, oh, I really don't want to do this today, but I've got to do it anyway.
Yep. It's true. It's funny. We do feed off of other people's, both the artist and radio. And then we're reporting to the bosses back home at what the thoughts are on the road and who's attached to what. And is there a common connection? And, where are we with all of this? People are people at the end of the day, right? And what we do is so important. We can bring them to you and kind of fake it. It doesn't feel good, but if we have to get through a day where we've just dinged a rental car and our company is going to say, oh no, and then you have to show up with everybody like nothing happened, or, your Amex didn't work and you had to pay cash out of pocket for a whole band's lunch meals and you don't have that, that's happened on the road. But what I have to say is, and you and Julie are the best of the best, but I don't know how you guys do it, because an artist, yes, can have a bad day. We've gone through life events with certain artists and where family has passed away and they're on the road. And, it's devastating. And you have people just being people. Either the show goes on for them and that's a good temporary distraction, or the world shuts down and that's the way it is. When you put on those headphones and get up to that microphone, you have hundreds of thousands of people that are listening to you and depending on you for distraction, for enjoyment, to bring back a memory, to bring back a thought. And I'm talking about not the playing of the music and the boasting of the artist and the supporting of the artist. How do you do it? Because like you said, if your son has a bad day and he really doesn't feel well, it's hard to get that out of your head. But how for 25, 30, 35 years have you made everybody feel so important, like they're the most important person in the room when they come to you. And you never miss a beat. You got to be tired. And I mean, how?
I never thought you could do this for a living. I majored in English literature because I didn't think you could do anything fun for a living.
Yeah, right.
And I started doing this when I was 13 years old. I worked all the way through high school, and I went to college, and I thought there's no way you could do it. And I worked all the way through college, and I was getting ready to get out of school, and a buddy of mine called me and invited me to come do nights in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm ready to do it. I'm going to go teach. And he goes, Gary, here's your career choices. You can either teach Shakespeare to 10th graders or sit in a room and talk to a stick. Yeah. And he goes, I've worked with you. I know you enjoy sitting in a room and talk to a stick. And so I said, well, I get out and do it for a year, and then I get
I'll try it.
And I'll try it. And a couple of months into it, I was like, wow, the goal should be, I should be having fun doing this. Because I loved radio. Larry Lujak, I don't know if you know that. Yeah. Larry Lujak did mornings in Chicago, and I loved him. He was if you have a radio hero, it's Larry Lujak. Because he was the first guy I had ever heard. Back then when I was growing up, everybody was like, oh, happy radio, it's a great day, and this is Farmer Jim, and oh, yeah, and it was that. And I would listen to the AM radio. I'd get up early in the morning so I could tune in WLS, so I could hear Larry Lujak. I had a little round AM radio. I'd listen to him, and he was the first guy who would go like, WLS, it's 5:18. And I can't feel my lips. WLS, and I've never heard anybody. He was funny, but he was grumpy, but not in a mean way. And I'm like, wow, he just entertains me. I just wish I was in the room with him.
Yeah.
And so I always have tried to just remember. I'll tell you this story. I was at morning show boot camp one time.
Oh boy. That's exhausting as it is.
Which it's exhausting. And the bad thing about it is, at the time, you had all of these kids who didn't care about radio. They just wanted to go into television. Yeah. And radio was just this beneath them stepping stone. And, it was my career. And I got up and said this thing. I said, let me tell you who I am. Let me tell you what it is I do. I said, I was on the air one morning when I got this call, and this kid asked me to play a song. And I'm like, and it sounded weird. It sounded boom, bang, boom, like that. And I'm like, hey, where are you calling from? He goes, I can't tell you. I'm like, are you in the military? He goes, yes. He goes, yes. I said, are you not in the country? He goes, no, sir, I'm not. I said, wow. I said, so why are you calling me? He goes, well, every day each of us get to choose the radio station we listen to. And he goes, today was my day to hear home.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, and I'm in front of these,
I couldn't even keep it together,
these asshats who really they are. And I'm like, that's who I am. I'm home. And that's who you are. You're home. Yeah. Right? And so I always try to remember, because it's wonderful. That's the beautiful thing about what we do, is people sit back and go, and especially doing this on the stream, and you'll hear people, I've moved to here so-and-so where I'm here, and I'm so glad that I can still listen to you and stuff like that. But I don't need to be perfect every day. And the truth of it is, most people don't remember what you consider your perfect shows.
Right.
And they'll remember stuff that it's like childhood memories. And it's like the same thing. I'd be willing. One of my biggest childhood memories is standing outside on a cold, probably this time of year where it was getting dark around 4:30, playing with my friends, and I could smell dinner cooking that my mother had made. And I'm like, and this is still, it's just one of the most real childhood memories. Now, the truth of it is, my mother had no idea I was making a memory. I didn't know I was making a memory. And I'm sure she would go, you don't remember when we did this? You don't remember when we did that?
You don't necessarily.
And you're like, yeah, but it doesn't stand out for me. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of your memories, the same thing, that it was the small moments. And so I remind myself all the time that it's the small moments that you just have to be there. The key to Somebody told me this when I had my kids. It's like, you're not going to do everything right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter as long as you're there. So as long as you're there,
That's beautiful.
you will screw up.
Beautiful.
You'll screw up and do things right. You'll have days when you think you've done everything right and screw up. But there are days when you'll mess up and things will go fantastically well. And you don't know. I tell my kids all the time, it's like, I'm trying to teach you how to raise your kids is what I'm trying to do. Because that's what my mother told me one time. She goes, I'm trying to teach you how to raise my grandchildren. And I remember going, oh, and I couldn't have been 12 years old. And I'm like, I can still remember, wow, I have just been told something. And part of it is just going up. And I try to remember when these new acts come in, this is their chance. And I remember having this conversation with this act. Matter of fact, it was Matt Stell. Yeah. And Matt and I went and played golf, and we had just got his song. There was nothing else there. And we didn't even know, we had just started playing it, and Nate's like, can you take it and play golf? And I'm sitting there talking to him after the round of golf, and I remember going, hey, buddy, just remember, I don't care what happens in your career. Enjoy this ride. You got your shot. And really, isn't that all you wanted was your shot? Yep. And you got it. And where you go with it, I said, if you become Garth Brooks level, you'll never forget. This is the fun part.
This is it.
This is the fun part. Yeah. And having that moment with everybody and try to give, I always tell people this. When people meet me, I want to be who you hope I am. I don't want to be anybody different, but I want to be who you hope I am.
Yeah.
You know? And if I can be that guy, then we're all good. Even. And the same thing when it comes, and then the same thing with being on the air. If I can be who you hope I am on the air, I'm gonna piss you off one day, and I'm gonna make you happy the next day. Because and what you'll learn is it really had nothing to do with me. It had to do with how you felt that day.
Yeah. What did you take in? You're no different. You're you.
So it's just so it's been such a fun ride, and having to change my way of doing things at this age is it's weird, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool, where you're like, okay, this is a new way of doing things. It's a new way of looking at it, and let's see what we can do. We'll see.